The U.S. government searched the home of its former leader for criminal evidence this week. Now, today, for the first time, the chief law enforcement officer of the United States, Attorney General Merrick Garland, spoke out about that unprecedented legal action. And he explained to the nation in brief, spare, objective, and at times even honestly dry terms what exactly they are doing, and that this grave step was taken carefully after the Attorney General says they exhausted the other less intrusive options, and he put it on record for the nation that he personally approved of this legal measure.
I personally approved the decision to seek a search warrant in this matter. Second, the department does not take such a decision lightly. Where possible, it is standard practice to seek less intrusive means.
Less intrusive means is exactly what the DOJ was, according to Garland, doing up until this search. Now, he spoke for just a few minutes. He took no questions. He emphasized that prosecutors will continue to approach this case with independent, nonpartisan rigor to uphold the rule of law.
Upholding the rule of law means applying the law evenly, without fear or favor. Under my watch, that is precisely what the Justice Department is doing.
There you have it. It may sound like general terms, and that's very deliberate. This Attorney General, so attacked and maligned by the former president, is going out of his way not to reveal anything that would not be legally proper, while also defending, as he has every right to do, what the department is doing, as well as explaining at a level that's legally valid what they're doing. So that's significant on its own. But there is way more news. It's what we just mentioned in the handoff into the beat tonight. Garland announcing that this Justice Department sees a legal and valid path to providing even more facts about that search of Mar-A-Lago. And that is why today, and this is big news, in some ways this is the biggest news of the week, and I know that sounds like a lot, but this Justice Department is going to now ask a judge to unseal the Trump search warrant and the list of property taken by that legal force out of the possession of Donald Trump's compound.
The department filed the motion to make public the warrant and receipt in light of the former president's public confirmation of the search, the surrounding circumstances, and the substantial public interest in this matter.
That is also a legal move, and it is in some ways unusual, but unusual in a bad way for Trump, and we'll explain, because this is not something where the DOJ just decides. These contents of that search warrant and what was seized would only become public after Trump has a chance to weigh in and a judge rules on it. But this is something that I want to explain to you. When we woke up today, we didn't know we would see this. This is very clearly this Justice Department calling out Donald Trump for unfairly publicizing selective deals of the operation while also simultaneously hiding the warrant. Consider that a natural or automatic trick that Donald Trump may just employ out of habit or that he thought he could get away with. So this was today, let's be clear, far more than a briefing or a press conference. As Garland spoke, we will show you what was happening in court. DOJ prosecutors going forward with court action, filing a new motion to formally unseal the warrant and those details. And that binding filing, the pages of which you see on the screen, well, it calls out Donald Trump even further, emphasizing that the DOJ was not the entity or the source of what went public with the unannounced search, that indeed the whole operation could have stayed secret, but as the filing explains, Trump himself provided the first public statement and public confirmation that this even occurred. Now, let me tell you what that is. That is DOJ's way of calling out Trump, of busting him for trying to publicize his own search. And you can imagine many people in life who, faced with this situation, would say, uh-oh, let's get through this, and, well, I won't publicize it because hopefully I'll just get through it. So they're calling him out for that, while also complaining about this public process that he is selectively publicizing. Now, the fact that there was a search or a raid is public because of Trump, not the DOJ. And that legally matters because Garland's new filing says that Trump's representatives have given these additional statements to the press concerning the search, including public characterizations of materials sought. And then, this is important, they say, therefore, the occurrence of the search and indications of the subject matter are already public. Now, that's respectful lawyer speak for, you did this, don't blame it on us, and we will take you back into court now, this is happening today, and we don't care whether you're the former president. We're not supposed to care that you're the former president. You are a citizen, no more and no less. That's what that thing really says, because boy, did they do a lot of ex-president special citizen treatment up to this point. And we have more on that tonight that we can show you the evidence, but I want to continue explaining the big story because Garland also notes this FBI search, in his view, was very credibly the last resort. And there's new reporting that connects with that, how something that may have understandably looked sudden to those who were not in the know on Monday grew out of a long process. That Trump first received a subpoena on this case in the spring, so the DOJ may have viewed Trump as failing to comply with that earlier binding demand. There are also reports that some of the possible items here are so sensitive and so tied to national security that the DOJ really had to act, given what they viewed as the lack of cooperation. Two sources briefed on the actual classified material in question spoke to the Times about that very issue. And amidst the heated attacks on law enforcement, the normally sober, out of the spotlight Garland today also spoke out, as I mentioned, defending his team against attacks by the GOP and Trump allies on what they used to call blue lives.
Let me address recent unfounded attacks on the professionalism of the FBI and Justice Department agents and prosecutors. I will not stand by silently when their integrity is unfairly attacked. The men and women of the FBI and the Justice Department are dedicated, patriotic public servants.
So after being searched on Monday and deposed on Wednesday, Trump now has this new high-pressure legal problem to deal with today, Thursday. Will he go along with the DOJ's request to just release this warrant and its material, or will he fight it? Well, that's the brand new question that, honestly, Trump and his lawyers didn't know they were going to get in a binding manner today. The new filing, again, I want to show you exactly what this is and the facts, says the former president should have an opportunity to respond to this motion and lodge objections, including with regard to any legitimate privacy interests or the potential for other injury to him if these materials are made public. Okay. And the court is requesting Trump's lawyers confer with DOJ and give an update tomorrow. So take this all together. Let me conclude for you before we bring in our experts about what we've learned today. And this is why we stay intellectually humble, because we didn't know this was going to happen today. Here's what's going on. This DOJ is dialing up the legal pressure here and now. And court clashes really do boil down to moves. Trump apparently made a move where he thought he could hand back some of the documents, and we've reported he did hand over some, and then just get away with the rest. And the DOJ made its move and said no. They knew or had strong evidence to prove that there were other classified and potentially criminal materials on site, and they made the move demanding them under subpoena. And Trump apparently thought he could just get away with whatever he had left without being searched or raided. He is the former president, and he's pushed lines before. And as Merrick Garland just explained today, it is true. What Trump may have reasoned is true, that they exhaust other less intrusive means first. So that was a move. But Trump miscalculated and faced this assertive operation. And then he decided to publicize that. And I'll tell you, that was another move. Whether Trump made it out of emotion or strategy, that move paved the way for the DOJ's very significant legal move today. That is the top story tonight, which is Merrick Garland basically saying, we did this quietly, you made it loud. And now you're complaining that the loud process is somehow, mysteriously, without evidence, unfair. So fine, says Garland. Let's put the facts about the search out, and the judges and the public will see for themselves what items you were hiding, he might say to Mr. Trump. Now, Garland's a very different operator than Trump or most of his lawyers. And it seems like he might take a few rounds of criticism or punches before he legally acts. But Mr. Garland, now after moving quietly, is acting. And Trump is out here complaining with his allies, darkly and violently and menacingly threatening some kind of unrest. The search is unprecedented. But I got to tell you, the contours of this kind of standoff are actually classic. Let me tell you what I mean. Trump used to have power, but legally in the United States, he now has no federal power. Garland is powerful. He is the one with far more moves that he is able to make. Garland is the one who actually knows things that neither the former president or the current president would know. And as Beanie Siegel put it so simply, the strong move quiet, the weak start riots. Donald Trump is as legally weak right now as he has ever been, facing a strong, if often quiet, legal adversary.